Welcome to the Punk CX podcast. My name is Adrian Swinscoe. I'm an advisor, author, and general explorer of the service and experience space. My guests tend to have just released some interesting research. They run a company that has some interesting tech in the service and experience space. They are part of an organization that is doing some cool stuff, or they run their own business doing interesting things for both their customers and or their employees. That's enough from me. Let's get into the interview. So welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, I have Simon Morris, who is the Area Vice President of Solution Consulting at ServiceNow. Simon, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
How you doing? Great. And great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. Now, so Simon, give me a bit of a thumbnail sketch on you, yourself, and sort of the work that you do.
Absolutely. So as you try to say, I'm the Area Vice President of so-and-so, but I work for a company called ServiceNow. And what we do is really simple. We help companies transform. We help companies identify their work that they do for their customers and their employees and how they can make that work flow in a much more intuitive, easy way, which reduces costs and drives experience and so on. And we do that with a enterprise platform. My job in the company is to lead our solutions consulting team. So we've got the great privilege of being out there with customers, understanding what they're trying to do, understanding their problems, understanding their opportunities, and then lining up solutions on our platform that can help them. And the area is that over the whole of the UK and Ireland as well. So two great markets, and really proud of the customer base that we have.
Fantastic. Now, apart from learning a bit more about that, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is that, I mean, ServiceNow. I've had people from ServiceNow on the podcast before. Particularly, I've had Michael Ramsey a little while ago, who introduced me to the concept of the messy middle. So a big shout out to Michael, because I think that's I've literally I don't know if I've adopted it. I've probably more accurately stolen it. That whole idea about the messy middle, because I love it's a beautiful idea. And I have to attribute kind of Michael for that, because he came in and we talked about it. And I think he's been on a couple of times. So I'm familiar with ServiceNow now, and any long-time listeners will be familiar with ServiceNow, but any long-time listeners would also be familiar with the idea that I love a bit of research. Mm-hmm. I love a bit of a report. Love to rummage around a bit of a stat every now and again. So one of the reasons that we arranged this is because ServiceNow have just produced this new research report called ServiceNow Consumer Voice Report 2024. Now, I believe it's in its second year, I believe. So I wondered if you could tell me about it. Tell me about the main headlines from this year, and what are the main differences from this year's findings compared to the previous report?
Well, it's a report that surveys a whole bunch of consumers across the UK and Ireland. Actually, we ran it across all of EMEA. From a European basis, actually, the UK is leading the way in this trend. But the trend, I think, is really concerning for business leaders. What it says is, all of us, me, you, all consumers, we're feeling a lot less loyal to brands than we did previously. And it's the second year we've run the report. Actually, the trend is accelerating. The gap is getting wider. Even more of us from the previous year are feeling less loyal. Now, there's a number of factors that drive that. Certainly, the cost of living crisis is one of those. But really high inflation. It's been an incredibly tough couple of years for all consumers. I think all of us feel we're paying more and getting less. At the same time, the ability to switch is greater than ever before. So you can switch energy providers and utilities providers. The cost of switching is lower, and we're more likely to switch. But of course, it comes down to experience as well. So bad customer experiences are driving people to a point where they are open to alternatives. Mm-hmm. So with customer acquisition costs going up and customer loyalty going down, I think this is really worrying reading for business leaders in retail, consumer goods, actually in many sectors across the economy.
And so when you say that kind of there's this decline in brands kind of loyalty, I mean, can you give me a sense of sort of quantifying that? What does it mean by that? Because I see a lot of I've seen lots of different sort of research around people becoming less patient, less tolerant about experiences that are not meeting their expectations. I mean, but have you in the report, have you been able to sort of get your arms around what this means in sort of tangible, measurable kind of like terms?
Yeah, let's add some numbers to it. So we ran the report 2 years ago. This is our second run. We did it 2 years ago. It was 58% of UK consumers say they are less loyal. And that's now gone up to 67%.
Right.
So, it's a sizable increase in the number of people. This is about sustainability to a certain degree. So 70% of consumers say sustainability is an important purchase factor. People are becoming more ethical and more radical in their shopping choices. They're becoming more aware of where their pound goes and the impact of if they switch their spending, how they can influence sustainability. But it's also coming down to factors around trust in technology. So obviously, Gen AI has been the number one conversation we've been having for the last 2 years. Now we're beginning to see AI solutions be very prominent in customer experience. But 40% of consumers don't want to deal purely with AI.
Right.
They're concerned about data, they're concerned about their experience, and to a certain degree, they're concerned about jobs being replaced.
Okay. And is there in that brand loyalty you talked about? Because I've also seen other research that says that echoes some of these kind of findings that the experiences in general, the experiences that that consumers or customers are getting are not meeting their expectations. And I guess if I kind of think about it this way, it's a bit like we know that people's expectations are generally on the rise, but it feels like that people are investing in new service and new experience initiatives, but it feels like they're just not keeping up, and that gap might be widening. And because actually we've seen research suggest that in the eyes of consumers, standards are slipping or not keeping up. Is that something you're sort of seeing and hearing in the space? And do you think that's one of those things that's, apart from all these macro factors, that actually is that also a thing that's playing into this decline in brand loyalty as well?
I think so. I think there are a couple of companies that are doing it really well, that are setting the expectations that other companies are really struggling to meet. Now, why do they struggle? A lot of those struggles come down to siloed back-end systems. So we're working with one very well-known grocery chain. We've all shopped at this grocery chain. And if you're a customer of this grocery chain, you're represented no less than 14 times in different systems. So making data available at the right place at the right time to serve the customer is actually technically really difficult for some organizations. So I think expectations are being set by the CX leaders in the market. Expectations of the consumers on the rise because we have access to more information and more digital technology. We're having our expectations shaped by these great experiences, and the sense of disillusionment when you deal with a customer and they don't know who you are or what you like or your previous history or what you're trying to achieve. That really shows through, I think, in the experience. And a lot of it comes down to siloed systems and often overloaded agents that are providing the service as well.
And can I ask you that siloed systems, because I mean, Simon, forgive me, but we've been talking about some of this sort of stuff for years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about the idea, the promise of, you talked about agents kind of not knowing who you are, kind of like not knowing your previous experience, kind of like not even knowing where you've come from on this particular journey in this particular instance and things, which all feeds into that whole omni-channel sort of experience. The idea that you've been able to take a knitted together sort of approach where a system can then pass on the knowledge of prior history, kind of knowledge, onto another system that enables kind of the next part of the journey, that type of thing. I'm probably not technically accurate, but you know what I mean. But this research says, like, only a minority of companies have actually achieved truly omni-channel experience. And I find myself kind of getting almost a bit like, well, not almost, like just frustrated with the whole idea, because it's almost like siloed behavior. Omni-channel is this thing, this promise, but many people haven't achieved it. And I guess there's this gap. It feels like there's this gap between the rhetoric and actual action. And I wonder what's actually stopping people doing it. I mean, is it that they're not doing that? Do they have so much technical debt, or they're just not committed to it, or is like, are they just not willing to rip off the plaster? What's your perspective? Because I mean, like, you are kind of in there trying to help people wrestle with this kind of problems. And I don't want to kind of like, you to speak out of turn, but just get your reflection on kind of what some of the big challenges that people need to overcome is. What is it that, what do companies need, where do companies need to get to build before they kind of get over that sort of tipping point and they go, right, fine, now we're going. What needs to happen?
I think, first of all, there's no problem with lack of vision or lack of clarity or lack of ambition. I think CX leaders know what they're trying to achieve, but they're really struggling with the amount of legacy technology in their businesses, technology that has built up over a lot of years. And fundamentally, a lot of these problems are financial problems.
Right.
They want to transform. They want to manage the future rather than manage the complexity and the cost of today. But operating costs are too high. And one of the things we do at ServiceNow, we have this 3-phase approach to transformation, and you have to do it in order. And the first one is to modernize.
Mm-hmm.
Modernize the experience for your customers, but really importantly, modernize the experience for your colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
Let's come back to that in a sec about modernization. Once you've modernized, you probably spent more. Your operating costs have gone up because you've bought a new platform, you bought new technology. You have to drive down operating costs. And that's around efficiency, it's around automation, it's around removing waste from these processes, and fundamentally running today's business cheaper than you did yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then that frees up the ability to invest in future platforms, future operating models, business models, ways of dealing with your customers. But a lot of organizations are spending so much on running the business and keeping the lights on, they haven't got the free capital to invest in future technology. And I think great business leaders are looking over the horizon and trying to manage the future. They can only do that if they are simplifying and modernizing how they run their businesses today. But that is really hard for businesses.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's thank you for that. I mean, it's a good perspective, but it's refreshing, heartening to hear that people are thinking about, but are constrained by the reality. And I guess that's the thing they need to wrestle. But it's also heartening to hear that, because one of the things I say to people is that, and it's part of a piece of ongoing research that I do around these sort of the behaviors or the characteristics of companies that lead their field in this sort of experience space. And one of the ones is that they manage these competing priorities, i.e. planning for the future and then delivering in the present. And I describe it with a phrase I would say that when I say the future of customer experience is always built in the present. And what I mean by that is that leading companies are investing for the future, but also enabling excellence in the moment, in the present. Because actually, if we don't attend to problems in the present and relationships in the present, then we forgo our chance of building on and nurturing those relationships tomorrow.
I agree.
Because actually, time is only a series of todays stitched together, right?
Absolutely.
And too many people get caught up in that investing for the future because they're worried about disruption and all this all these other kind of things, but they forget to attend to the stuff that's real and it's happening today, which I think speaks to your whole modernization sort of idea, and then reducing kind of like operating costs in the current kind of business kind of model, which then frees up capital to be able to invest in the kind of future. So it becomes this virtuous kind of like circle.
Yeah, you want to find a flywheel that you can spin faster and faster. It's a flywheel of identifying opportunities to automate, actually going to do the automation. There's a great analogy here of, it's not a very fashionable analogy, of drilling for oil. I think that's probably a dying art in this world, but let's use it for a moment whilst we still can.
Yeah.
If you go and see any Texan in a Texas oil field, they're going to tell you digging the hole is the easy bit. Knowing where to drill is the science and the art.
Mhm.
Once you've found your value trapped underground, digging the hole to extract it, that is procedural, and it's something that they do all the time. So knowing where to drill is important. And what's the analogy for business leaders? There's so much inefficiency in businesses today. There's so much value trapped underground, trapped in our operating processes that we can extract. But having the analytics, knowing where work flows today, where work gets stuck, where a customer case is reassigned 4 or 5 times, and who suffers? The customer, right? In delays and confusion. But having the analytics to know where to find the trapped value is the art. Automating things is actually fairly procedural and a simple thing to do. But you need this flywheel of identifying automation opportunities, implementing automation, keeping an eye on value, keeping an eye on reducing cost today, as I say, to invest in the future.
Yeah. And I guess, but it's all contingent on modernizing the way that you do things and biting the bullet and doing that, because only when things are on one sort of connected, not necessarily one connected platform or one platform, but like at least a connected landscape, which can be connected, is then you can start really tackling so many of these kind of the opportunity, the automation opportunities that span kind of cross journey or whole journey or cross enterprise, across the enterprise.
And that's why your kind of nod to the messy middle is really important, because we put so much investment in the point of contact with a customer, making that contact moment as digital and intuitive as possible. But most customer needs aren't resolved at the point of contact. They're going to navigate the middle office. Mm-hmm. And that's where you find all of this inefficiency and waste. When you leave the point of contact and then you engage different teams in account management or fulfillment or contract change, whatever it is, that's where the CX really takes a nosedive. When you leave the point of contact and you go into that messy middle.
And the interesting thing is that that idea that those sort of instances are only going to loom larger if you track the evolution of where technology is going to go, where automation, self-service, digital kind of tools are just going to mature and evolve and get better. And so many of these simple things are largely going to go away or get moved off the desk of a first line of support for customer service. And so more of the things that they'll be presented with are likely to be more complex, complicated queries that will require intervention or engagement with the middle office or the back office.
Yep.
And therefore, if you don't have that level of connectedness, you're like going, heightened expectations come in, they take a nosedive when they hit your organizational complexity or dysfunction, call it what you will.
Absolutely. And Adrian, I want to come back to this theme of modernization. I'm a massive advocate for the welfare of our agents that are dealing with our customers. The customer is king, the customer is the most important person. But I think every interaction with a company is like looking through a little gap in the fence. You're peering through a little viewport, and through that gap in the fence, you're looking into the complexity of the organization. If we can simplify the way we do business, if we can elevate the agents so they have more free time, they're not as overloaded, they're not engaging in menial, repetitive, low-value tasks, I think that is the key to reversing this trend in this report. I think if you want to provide great customer experience, everyone talks about the 5-star customer experience. How can you deliver that if your employees are getting a 2-star experience?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's a bit like, I always kind of think about it from I sometimes use analogies where it's a bit like having you remember those kind of like, you remember when hit sports cars used to be a thing? So you buy, go onto Tinterweb and you buy yourself a kit and it arrives and you build it. It's a build your own sort of sports car. And it usually takes a long time, but then people used to build them and then put crappy engines in them. So you got this flash polished kind of like gleaming kind of thing. but then it's got like a hairdryer inside it. So it's a bit like that's what I mean. A bit like that's the 5-star, 2-star sort of thing. What's the point of having it looks something that all looks shiny and nice when it's kind of got something which is low horsepower but it doesn't match.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many people come to work looking for purpose, looking to do their best work. If they can do their best work, they can live their best lives and fulfill their own potential. It just makes me really frustrated that so many people have to engage in low-value, repetitive work. Because if we took that away and we automated that, what would they do with their time? Would they slack off or would they go on TikTok? No, I think they'd probably spend more time doing the things they enjoy about their job.
But I think that also kind of, to your point, is a lot of that how we approach those things comes down to how we think about what people would do if we freed up their time.
Yes.
And so it's not just a reformation or modernization of kind of the way we do business, but also we have to modernize our mindset and reform our mindset. And we have to kind of because if you think that you create free time that people are all they're going to do is they're going to suck it off, they're going to have extended lunch breaks, so they're going to be on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, then guess what? You're going to get what you wished for.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. That's it. But if you believe in people and believe in the potential of people, and then you hire people and manage people in line with all of that sort of stuff, then I'm pretty sure that you're going to get some pretty positive results.
Most people want to do their best work. They want to create valuable outcomes and solve problems. I think that's why people take these kind of jobs. I'm sure it is a job still. I'm not elevating it to the point where it's going to be a vocation and you kind of run into the office, but we can certainly transform the experience for our employees. And I think that's a really solid way to start to transform the customer experience as well. We're big advocates.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. And I would go further and I would say, for some people just like to solve these problems and they like to help. And there's nothing wrong with the idea of wanting to build a vocation, a career in a helping space, because it's going to become increasingly complex and multi-skilled and stuff, and that should be a thing rather than just being a transitory sort of, or it's thought about as being a lower level transitory sort of sort of role or things. I think there is an opportunity for people to build. There should be an opportunity for people to build careers in this, because it's and I think fair play to them, because they are like the fire department of most organizations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, coming back to the report, because we could probably kind of wax lyrical about some of this sort of stuff for a while. Now, because another report spans, as you said, it's the one I've seen is largely to do with the UK and Ireland, but it spanned EMEA, which is kind of a big geography. And I wanted to ask, is this decline being seen equally across all of the countries surveyed? Or, I mean, I think you also did allude to earlier on that you thought the UK was slightly further ahead in some of this sort of stuff, but kind of where's what does the landscape look like across kind of EMEA? Is it kind of mostly the same or different or slightly nuanced?
No, it is a trend that spans EMEA, and we surveyed all of the what we call tier 1 countries in EMEA. So the largest economies, they're all showing the same, but compared to EMEA customers, UK customers are less loyal by about 2 or 3 percentage points over France and Spain and Germany. Why is that? I think it's around our cost of living crisis. I think we've been particularly hard hit the last couple of years. Probably a lot of instability in our economy and our political world at the moment as well.
Yeah.
So we are leading the trend. And of course, as a leading economy in EMEA, that is probably a concern for people that do business across the region, that the UK consumers are switching off when it comes to loyalty.
Yeah, but it's a consistent trend across the kind of piece. It's not just isolated to the UK and Ireland, but it's accentuated here because of some other factors. But it's generally a consistent theme across EMEA. This decline in brand loyalty.
I think also it's worth noting not in the report, but in my experience, it's the middle ground that is expanding. Some companies are driving amazing loyalty. We're actually, all of us, at the same time, more loyal to the brands that we love and a lot less loyal to those at the other end of the spectrum. And it's the middle ground that is expanding. So it does show, I think, that service is at the key to all of this.
Yeah.
Still go out and spend money on new iPhones, because we love the way it makes us feel. It loves the personal identity that comes with this device and so on. But I think it is the more kind of transactional purchases. I think in a market where there were a lot of Me Too products, so you maybe haven't got a competitive advantage on the qualities of your products, how you make people feel about the service has to be your competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Products are becoming commodities, but service can still be a differentiator if you can get it right.
Yeah. But I mean, to that kind of point, really, there's another thing in the report I wanted to ask about, because it says that you said in the report, it says the future of customer experience is high tech meets high touch.
Mm.
And I was a bit like, okay. And then I thought, I'm going to ask Simon, explain what you mean. Explain yourself, Simon.
Explain myself.
Explain what you mean by that. And because I was left with the question, it was like a high touch, high tech approach. I mean, is that appropriate for all brands, or kind of like tell me what you were thinking with that finding?
We say in the report, the future of customer experience is high tech meets high touch. And what does that mean? It means that customers are welcoming to introducing technology into their experience. So all of us have battled with a chatbot that wasn't very intuitive, wasn't very cognitive, didn't really understand us, and it probably was a bad experience. But generally, we are open to tech forming a part of our customer experience. That's the high tech bit. But I think we need to recognize that people still want that human interface when they need it.
Mm-hmm.
Certain journeys that a customer makes where tech is the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've just been defrauded on your bank account, or I don't know, your house is on fire, you're not going to engage with an AI chatbot. You want the human response. You want to be listened to, and you want to have that personal connection with someone that empathizes with your very urgent situation. So how can we deliver both high tech and high touch? Is invested in tech. I think generative AI is going to be very exciting for those in the CX domain. I think it's going to add a lot more personalization and data and insights into the customer experience. But we need to have people available at the same time. How can we make those people available? We have to elevate them at work. We have to automate the low value, repetitive stuff and give them more time to be available to serve customers in that humanistic way.
Mm-hmm.
So consumers want both. They want everything. We know that about consumers. Across all of these different channels, they want a high tech and a high touch approach from their suppliers.
Okay. I mean, I think that for me, it's going to, what comes out of it is that, and this is one of the things that I always I have a litany of frustrations when it comes to this kind of like this sort of space. I sometimes wonder, like, how do I maintain motivation? But it seems to me that because I go back to something that you kind of like said earlier. You said like there is no lack of motivation or vision at the leadership level, and I would say, okay, that's fine. I'll take that, but I would question how deep it goes, because my frustration is that you talk to people about their vision, their experience, vision, and strategy and things, but when you interrogate it and ask about, well, what does that mean for people across the business in terms of their role that they're going to play in delivering that, and how does that change across different types of customers and different points of the journey and all these different things? How do we get people facing all the, and because I think there's a question is like, well, at what point, what's the kind of human tech balance that you're offering that's aligned with your strategy, and how are you going to apply that across different parts of the journey for different groups of customers? I'm pretty sure that most people haven't gone to that level of sophistication or kind of like the level of granularity that they kind of like need to go. And this is what this means for this person in this part of the organization that's going to be able to deliver that. And so I agree with you. We need to be very discerning about where we apply technology and kind of human touch, but I don't think, and maybe that's the top level, that we have a high level sort of vision. I don't know if we've got the layer underneath really kind of like nailed as yet in many organizations.
And I think you're talking about, to a certain degree, architecture,
right?
About data in the right place and having systems. We are seeing companies follow a trend of investing in fewer, bigger platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Every company runs their business on 4 key platforms. It's sales and marketing, it's accounts and finance and supply chain, it's attracting and retaining the best people, so a core HR system. And we believe, of course, that you need a 4th platform to make work flow throughout the organization.
Mm-hmm.
We know a good answer to that one. But no, there's 4 key platforms that every business needs. There's a great opportunity, I think, at elevating these silos of people, silos of data and activity, of insights and automation, and having a much more simplified view of the customer and a view of the business. I agree. I think there is ambition there, but the ambition is so heavily tempered by the reality of fragmented tech platforms today.
Right. And so, given all this, I mean, what would be some of the biggest lessons coming out of the report? What would be some of the biggest recommendations that you would make based on some of the findings out of the report for brands and not just for people listening in? What would it be?
I think there's a couple of points where people should read the reports and then take action. I think the first one is around investing in AI, and generative AI is the topic of the moment. I've never seen a technology with so much pull from the business. So if you look at cloud and you look at automation, look at all of these previous tech trends, it's been the CIO having to push this out into the business. They're imperative. They're responsible for generating the excitement in a certain degree. With Gen AI, it is the business that is pulling from the CIO. They're saying, when can we do this? And we've got to do it now. We're seeing customers look at Gen AI into 2 buckets. Number one is, how do I build a cognitive brain that understands my market, understands my business, and can build a better strategy than my chief strategy officer, the cognitive super brain that understands the entire business. I think we're 3 years away from having that kind of implementation of Gen AI. We've got the hype cycle, the peak of excitement, and then the trough of disillusionment. We're going to have to get up the realistic slope before we get to that big cognitive brain. If we get there, I can see us delivering a single 1 million minute saving to a business. A lot of value by having this kind of cognitive brain overseeing the direction and strategy of the business. The second approach, where customers have to get on the train today, is about embedded AI. So looking at our existing journeys, what do we do today? How do we serve the customer? And how can I use embedded AI to save 1 minute?
Mm-hmm.
So for a moment, put the 1 million minute saving into the future. Can I save 1 minute today? And at the volume of activity that goes on in any business serving customers, you'll scale that 1 million minute saving, so that 1 minute saving 1 million times over pretty quickly. You've got the volume to reach the same level of saving, because in a customer journey, you can save a minute at the beginning when you're searching for the right offering and trying to formulate your request with AI. You can save a minute after submission by routing it to the right agent. You can save a minute when it transfers from one person to the next by summarizing the case. So it's about embedded AI today. And I think customers have to get on that train quickly to reduce the operating costs, to invest in the highly risky, expensive mega brain projects they want to see in a couple of years. So AI is the first one. It's not just a meme or a big bubble. People are seeing real results from it today in the embedded AI space. And number 2, I would say you got to focus on your employees. Elevate your employees and your agents. They will provide a better service to your customers.
I would also say get them involved as well, because they are the super intelligence
Yeah.
in your business. I mean,
Yeah.
and we forget that sometimes, is that we have a network of supercomputers in most organizations. The thing is, we generally don't connect them all together and leverage that
and what do we get
intelligence.
them doing? We get them, moving data from one screen to the other. It's
Right.
it's a criminal waste of potential. Yeah.
And 100%. So, is there anything else you'd like to add or highlight before I ask you some final kind of questions?
Well, I think these challenges are also massive opportunities for companies in the CX space. I think customer lifetime value is there. We can get more out of our customers in terms of revenue and value if we can get this challenge converted to an opportunity. The people that are loyal to brands are ever increasingly more loyal. It's the middle of the cohort which is suffering.
Yeah.
Those that don't differentiate based on the service they provide. So I think the thing I'd like to highlight is that all of these challenges are actually long-term opportunities for business.
Awesome. Oh, and one final thing before I thank you for that. But one final thing I wanted to ask you before I go into my quick fire questions at the end. It's like going, I know that ServiceNow also announced a strategic partnership with Genesys. I was like, ta-da.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Why is that? How's that come about? What's the combined platform going to allow customers to do? Or is that just kind of like front end connecting to and solving for the messy middle and all that type of stuff?
Absolutely. So yeah, ServiceNow's have a partnership with Genesys. It's a technology partnership as well as an alliance that we're going to work together much more closely as two businesses. Even today, I think people look at a digital first strategy and forget the fact that people are still going to pick up the phone and call you. And it's a really cutting question when you go to a customer and you talk about transformation, you talk about omni-channel and engaging on WhatsApp and through portals. And you say, are you expecting people to pick up the phone? And they say, well, we'd like to eliminate it. You maybe cut it down by half if we're really successful, but people still need to pick up the phone. And in organizations, the buyer of a telephony solution is not always aligned to the buyer of customer experience and transformation. So coming back to that messy middle point, coming back to the point that the point of contact is critical, but the point of resolution often goes into the messy middle office. That is a case management workflow opportunity for customers. Recognizing that people are still going to call, but that issue needs to be transferred, I think demands a much tighter technical relationship between the contact platform and the case platform. But I think it's just better for customers altogether. It's about going to market together, having a tighter technology solution for a very common need to
Fantastic
service digitally, but also service in a voice way as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I think anybody managing any sort of like, well, the bottom line is like customers are funny buggers and they'll do what they want when they want it, really. Yeah. And despite the fact that you can like say, I would rather you didn't call us, they'll just call you anyway because they'll do what they want to do. But anyway, thank you for that. That's good. We'll keep an eye on that. So, some quick fire questions before we finish up. So, we've talked about a bunch of different things. Well, what I would like to do on these podcasts is like ask people to boil it down. And in order to help with that, I've been asking people to complete this sentence. So, and the sentence is around what would be your best advice to somebody that listening who wants to improve their customer or employee experience. So, complete this sentence, Simon. If you want to improve your customer employee experience, Simon Morris says, do this, ... Complete that sentence.
Elevate your people to allow them to do their best work.
Full stop. Boom.
Full stop.
Thank you. Awesome. Now, second one is, this is a Punk CX podcast, and as you know, I've written a couple of books that are about punk inspired, and the latter one was Punk XL, and XL stands for Experience Leader or Experience Leadership. And so, wanted to ask you, what company or brand do you think takes a more punk approach to customer experience, or is an experience leader? Who's setting the bar? Who's got it all knitted together? Who's going, they're great, and sort of why?
Well, I've had this question. I kind of struggled with who I'd pick out of the field. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about my hometown. So my daughter's 6 years old, goes to the local school, blonde hair, pigtails. I think she's very cute. And when I pick her up from school and take her home, we go to the same shop, the local supermarket, a couple of times a week. There's a lady in that shop at retirement age, maybe slightly older than retirement age, and she gives the best customer experience I've ever had because she makes a fuss of my daughter. She knows everybody in the town, and she's an ambassador for her supermarket.
Right.
And it drives my wife mad, but I always go and ask people about their work. What do you love doing about your work? And she was a city banker.
Right.
She retired quite early and then realized retirement just wasn't for her. And then she took a job in a local supermarket just to be with people and spend time with them. So she's an amazing brand ambassador. And when I asked her what she loved about her job, she says, talking to you and meeting your daughter. And when I asked what she hated about her job, she said, when things go wrong and I have to sit in the back storeroom on the phone to head office, I hate it. And it really reminded me that people come to work to do their best, but doing their best often means creating value for their customers, being with people, and not dealing with disruptions and incidents and problems and IT issues. That's what they hate about their job. But she's the best brand ambassador for me. So thank you to Brenda from Upminster Co-op. You are the brand ambassador that I admire the most.
Awesome. Love it. And, well, big shout out to Brenda at the Upminster Co-op.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And so one final question before we kind of go. So I've been doing this for a little while now, and in the hope that things would kind of change. But the world is a weird place, and it seems to be getting increasingly weird. And I wake up in the morning and try and find my way through all the kind of the doom scrolling bad news headlines. And so what I've been to try and tilt the balance on that in my own little small way, I've been asking people at the end of these podcasts is to share with me a good news story. So we can end on a positive note. So can you tell me what's the most interesting, positive, or exciting thing that you've seen in the last week?
Now, the ServiceNow comms team are going to hunt me down for this because I could have talked about ServiceNow or customers or something to do with work. However, in my local town, there's a 16-year-old girl called Harriet Cole, and she went to the gym and saw somebody powerlifting, and she thought, that looks cool, and I'll give it a go. That was a year ago.
Right.
She set the British record for her age and weight a week ago, and now she wants to go and compete in the European Championships. So I've been basically over the last 24 hours, and ServiceNow customers and our colleagues and our partners have raised £1,000 in the last 24 hours to send a young lady who didn't lift anything a year ago and is now a UK record holder to go and smash the competition in the European Championships. So I'm just really proud that people, this is all about storytelling. It's an amazing story, and people said, I'll donate a £5 for that. But I think it's a great story about focus, about tenacity, about winning and having a growth mindset. These are things we always want in business. But I think this young lady represents all of those qualities in the fact that she's a record-breaking powerlifter 1 year after giving it a go once.
Wow, that's fantastic.
She's an inspiring young lady.
Yeah, no, it's a great story. And also it's the power of just setting your mind to something.
Well, you talk about punk. I think she was in that gym with a load of boys her own age, and I think she's outperforming them every day. So you talk about punk attitude. And
yeah, absolutely. We're like going, I'm going to have that. And then she did. She set about it. And so a year later, she's smashed the kind of a British record, and then now she wants to go into the European Championships. So absolutely fair play to her.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That's brilliant. And that's all I brings us to the end of the podcast. And I just want to say that's all I have for today. I want to say, Simon, thank you I get all this, the links to the report, get it all linked up, get it included in the write-up. Just want to say thank you for sharing your time and your insights today. That's been awesome.
It's been a real pleasure, Adrian. Thank you.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. And do tune in again. Thanks very much.